Well, hello, and welcome. Laura Brandenburg here from Bridging the Gap, and I'm super honored and excited to be speaking with Munzolli Tower today. Munzolli's from, or living in New Jersey now, but grew up in Michigan like I did, or has family in Michigan like I do. So, Munzolli, first of all, thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for, inviting me, having me on, and, just being able to share my story.
Yeah, I'm excited to. There's some pieces that I know from the things that I've seen in the group, and there's some things that I'm sure I will learn in our conversation today. So if you could just take us back, you were part of the spring 2019 session of the Blueprint, and so you joined in like January, February. Where were you at in your career in like January, February of this year?
Okay, up to that point in my career, it was a little chaotic for me.
Mhm.
The company I worked for about 10 years had recently just sold their casino division to a Canadian company. So I was shipped off to that company. And, it was a whole different world, different processes, different methodology and how they work. So it was really like, an adjustment period there. So
Yeah.
time to, say, okay, since everything's kind of going to be up in the air, let me see if I can learn some new skills or fine tune some of the skills I already have, and
Hmm.
that'll help me along the way. So it was just like a whole bunch of moving parts at the same time.
So lots of change in your organization, and you'd been a BA for a while though, correct?
I have unofficially, I guess you can say, like, I was really doing it and not really knowing I was doing it. I
Hmm.
would kind of just sat on projects and sent to represent the group. So, I did so, and then I had the chance meeting with a certified BA, and showing around because they just got hired, and he asked me like, "What do you do?" So, I'm saying, this is what I've been doing up to now, but mainly, recently I've been really been, hammered and just involved in project work and representing the groups in this way. He was like, "Really? I do the same thing." Like, really? So then he introduced me to IIBA and told me about the certification, and from there it's just kind of like really just took off from that point.
Gotcha. And so you have more of a business background than a technical background? Is that true?
Business and thinking.
Yeah, so you were a business subject matter expert that kind of ended up being on the projects, and that's how a lot of people roll into business analysis. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was definitely my path.
Yeah. All right. All right. And then what were your expectations when you joined the Blueprint? You mentioned you were kind of in a state of chaos, looking to improve your skills.
Hmm.
Yep. And also, you're on your path to certification now? Is that correct?
No, I actually didn't got those. I got
Okay.
my CBAB, PMP, SPO, and CSM, the
All
Scrum.
right. So you're very
Mhm.
well credentialed business analyst. Yeah. So what were your expectations going into a program like this with all those credentials still behind you?
Well, really, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the area I worked in, where I had a lot of I guess subject matter expert knowledge.
Hmm.
Really wanted to make sure I was good in business analysis, and so
Hmm.
my expectation was to ensure the processes I was using spoke to being able to be transferable to any I guess industry and organization.
Yep.
And to learn more, you had a data modeling section or a module that really interests me. I had a little exposure, but not a whole lot, not as much as I wanted. So that was another one.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that's an area that a lot of BAs don't get exposed to until like there's a project that needs it. And then you kind of can feel like you're in a sink or swim situation.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Is it something that you've used now in your work?
I actually have. I used it in the Canadian company where I had just recently switched from. So
Hmm.
that was like actually perfect timing.
Gotcha. Are you able to share a little bit about that project? I think it's always interesting to hear about like what projects were like, different kinds of projects that BAs work on.
Okay, for that one, I'm just trying to, refresh and remember the
Yeah.
details in my head. Well, I guess I can probably put it to a better project, the one I'm currently working on now for the company. And I really had to go through and understand like a particular file where they're sunsetting one I guess you can say accounting system or collection system, and they're moving the details to a new and more robust system. So I had to actually create the file and map the data, from the original one to the new one. And, the fields were way smaller than the new one. Had to actually, I guess you could say, one of the fields where, you make a pledge to make a payment. And in that, it's not quite configured yet the tool isn't quite developed yet to be able to pull that data into the new system correctly. So I had to, work with the group and discover a workaround for that. And, with the workaround, we've decided that it's best to append the data to another file in a section with just a couple of tags. And, that data modeling course pretty much kind of gave me the mindset and, the understanding of how the systems will relate and pretty much get it done in a much easier fashion than it probably would.
Yeah, and avoid a ton of issues too, because like that's the kind, like when you mentioned that workaround, like discovering even though you're still using a workaround, discovering that earlier in the process rather than like, I mean, my husband does a lot of data migration type stuff, and a lot of times people are like, after it's live, like, well, wait a minute, where's this data, right? And so that's a big, like you prevented so many issues down the road. So that's pretty phenomenal.
Working with, more senior BAs who's been in the company longer, it was just really helping, be able to speak the language and, communicate in a clear way.
Yeah. Are there any wins from the program that stand out to you?
Really, making sure everything speaks the same language. Like, I work with Doug and he really fine-tune my thinking on that. Like, I would kind of have like little subtle differences that he would immediately pick up and just make everything more succinct and, easier to read and flow. So I've taken that like throughout each of the 3 modules. He's kind of helped me like, find opportunities to make sure like everything is absolutely, aligned. And
right, like the language, right? And that it's a tight and clear document. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. And I know like one of the things he shared about you in our recap was how you really like you reworked some of your models and you really just jumped into the learning opportunity and received the feedback and worked through it and showed up in the instructor hours and asked questions and really approached it with that investment mindset as well.
Yeah. Definitely. And, to me, I wanted to make sure I did everything I possibly could to understand and fix the problem before, I came and tried to, elicit more help and information.
Yeah.
So make sure I understood it was a big goal to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'll be sure to pass that on to Doug as well. Yeah. And so along the path, I actually don't know if it was related to the blueprint or not, but throughout the program, you actually found a new job and was promoted into, or you moved into a senior business analyst role. That's correct, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about how, like, was it a promotion in your company or a new company, and how did that come to be?
It was actually a promotion within a new company. Okay. So I worked for a Canadian company, and now I'm with Fireserve, which is an American company. And so really just, understanding and being able to pull some of those details, some of the information from the course, like the processes, being able to probably discuss a little bit more about different entities and, go into a little more detail about the use cases that use them in a sense in the past. But Doug really challenged me on a bunch of my assumptions and the way I used to go about doing them. So kind of like fine tune my expectation in those, and I was able to speak better and more in depth and apply it to more situations when going through the interview. And it was
Gotcha.
yeah, and the interview process was a lot more thorough than I remember since I've been out of that process for up until now about 10 or so years. So that was definitely a win in that.
Yeah, well, and if you and BA interviews do tend to be pretty in depth like that. So if you'd been interviewing for maybe more of a business role and hadn't interviewed as a BA before, that is a big part of it, because I think sometimes employers don't really know what they're looking for, so they just keep asking questions, right, until they get that level of confidence in a candidate. So was this the first job that you applied for and that you got?
Well, I applied internally with when I was working
Mm-hmm.
at US Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So originally my role, was kind of like a structured financial analyst in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, where they were kind of throwing me on different projects. But then I transitioned and applied for a business analyst role within the company.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was my first interview. But
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of already inside the company, so it's not as thorough as going to another company. Like that
Oh,
one,
gotcha. So it was an internal. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, the first one.
Yeah. Nice. Well, good. So I'm glad to hear that there was a connection there, and that confidence that you had in your skills was a big part of that as well. So I guess final or a couple more questions have come up. You've been really generous with your advice and your feedback, but what somebody going for kind of what you're to follow on your path into more of a senior business analyst role, what are some of the general tips and suggestions you might give to them? Like, what do you think were some of the keys to moving along that path for you?
Honestly, this really the thing that really stands out to me is really in the beginning. Like when I first started into the company, like they would suggest, well, we need help here, we need help there. Like just really getting that exposure to the different parts
Mm-hmm.
was like instrumental. And then as they believed in my skills and the work I was doing, putting me into different projects really kind of built up my confidence at that point. So it's really just sometimes just seeing like little subtle opportunities that may feel like extra work at the moment really pay big dividends later on. So
Right. So saying yes to the things that came up along the way.
yeah. And
Yeah.
some of them were like, really difficult, really time consuming, and like being there late on maybe a Friday night where in the summertime would you much rather be out doing something nice, but those things really kind of set the foundation for what I'm doing now.
Right. So you were able to combine the skills and this track record of contribution and going to the next level in your organization.
Yep. If I
Yeah.
really had the bottom line, I would say like just doing those things kind of like gave me a subject matter I guess role in a sense, kind of like expose me to more of the different areas and being able to support and understand the processes from their side, and then from that just being able to communicate that well and in a way that's helpful to the people who are going to need your skills and your abilities.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And if you hadn't invested in the blueprint, where would you think you might be today?
If I didn't invest, that is a tough one. I'm
It is.
already a BA. I don't know if I'll be quite as polished because, given the fact that you're able to take real world work, so
Mm-hmm.
some of the work on my projects, I can do it right, and then I'm putting my best effort, but then you kind of like refine and perfect that process even further. So this is kind of like fast track in a sense. Like you'll still make progress. You can definitely make progress on your own, but it's just the time invested and getting to where you want to get to could
Yeah.
be dramatically sped up. Just by having people who even if if you've been doing it for a while, you may find a process that works for you, but just having like the different groups of people who have been doing it in different areas and being able to fine tune and get different perspectives really helps to get you in a better place.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I just want to honor like the investment you've made in yourself and both the time and the financial commitment, and obviously with the investment you've made in your work and constantly going to the next level. So that takes a courage and a discipline and a perseverance, and that's what got you to where you are today. So thank you for that. We need BAs like you, and you're going to inspire a lot of people today. So any last words before we close? Anything you want to make sure that you share?
It's definitely possible. Like, a lot of times, like I was told, you probably won't be able to do this, or, maybe you should look in a different area. And a lot of times myself, like, I didn't really see the path forward, but, as long as you keep pushing forward, eventually something will break and will happen. It's just, to me, it was just really like, finding the right piece that connected everything together. And, from there, like, everything just kind of took off. So.
I love it. All right. And I had one more question as you were sharing that. What does the next step look like for you now?
Well, for me, the next step is being able to master this process and teach it to someone else. Like, get them to where they want to be, understand where they are, and kind of like what you guys have been able to do for me, like understand my strengths, my weaknesses, and craft situations that will put me in a better place to help, to understand what I'm doing and be able to do that for someone else.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. That's the ripple effect of one BA helping another, and great profession for that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to see you. Well, it's great to see you succeeding in this position and to also be teaching others. It's like that's an amazing thing to hear. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being part of Bridging the Gap.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks.